Hello everyone and welcome to another MinotaurZombie review / thoughts. This time on Live a Live, a quirky JRPG released by Squaresoft for the Super Nintendo in 1994. Unfortunately, this game was only ever released in Japan and never came anywhere else. Thankfully, they on Genesis have done an unofficial translation of this game, and I'd just like to give shoutouts to all of them because they did a fantastic job. This would be a really hard game to translate and localize, and I think they did an excellent job. There's a lot of wacky things in this game that are very hard to relate to an American audience, I feel, and I just think they did an excellent job. Now, as usual, I'm going to start off talking about the story of this game. I'm not going to give an overview of the general character stories, though. See, unlike most games, the quirky part about this one is that this game takes place over 7 different scenarios, or chapters. Each one has a completely different protagonist, completely different story, and because of that, I think if I give you an overview of each character, it would diminish the impact of what they are, because each story is only, I would say, about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how much you explore throughout them. So to even give a basic overview would kind of be ruining the plot a little bit in my mind. The 7 different scenarios are split up between prehistoric, ninja, kung fu, western, space, wrestling, and mecha. Each contained story is very trope heavy, and to me that's what gives this game a lot of appeal. The western chapter is just like every other classic western movie you've seen. The space chapter is very evocative of many epic space movies like Space Odyssey 2000 and Alien, and it just continues like this for all of them, and it really gives it just a great feel. I loved the contained stories in each one. They are fulfilling, they have a good start, a middle, and an end. They all feel complete within the span of about an hour and a half to 2 hours, which is impressive. The only chapter that I did not really enjoy myself in is the wrestling chapter, and that's only because there really was no story to speak of. Each chapter really has its own unique tone and humor. Some of it can be pretty offbeat sometimes. For example, the prehistoric chapter has a lot of fart jokes. The mecha chapter, for some reason, has some poop jokes, but then sometimes the game will get really serious, dark, and mature with things like characters coughing up blood as they die, or whatever the heck Spinning Woman is. It really feels like each one of these chapters is its own separate game, complete with separate credits for each chapter completion. And once you complete all the chapters, you'll have one kind of final thing to go through that kind of links it all together, and it's actually really satisfying. I was surprised at how well they were actually able to link these together and create a complete full story, because they are all so seemingly unrelated. Now, because they have 7 different distinct chapters, it allowed them to do something completely different with every single one of them. Getting into the gameplay a little bit, for example, you have the space chapter, which is almost all dialogue at all times. In fact, the only required battle that you have to complete is the boss, and the boss really is not challenging at all. It's almost a completely story-based chapter by itself. In contrast, you have the wrestling chapter, which is nothing but fighting. It's actually probably the weakest chapter in the game because of that. In the ninja chapter, it's a self-contained mission that a ninja goes on, and rather than having random encounters like every other chapter, this one has enemies that you can see. They give the ninja an invisibility cloak that you can use on command to try and hide from them, so you can make your way sneakily through this place. It's little things like this in each chapter that gives them their own distinct flavor and style, and it never feels like I'm playing the same thing every time I select a new chapter. It keeps the game fresh, and because it switches it up about every hour and a half to 2 hours, it really keeps you guessing as to what's going to be next. The battle system itself is very unique, and in some ways I think has a lot of depth, but is also incredibly basic. What happens is you're placed on this square grid filled with tiles between you and the enemies, and you have a party of up to 4 characters. You only move 1 character at a time. Now, every time you move, one of the enemies will often move as well, and if you're in range of one of the enemy's attacks, if any of your characters are in range of one of the enemy's attacks, they will usually act after you. And after they attack, you have a few free moves or turns. But if you attack, they generally attack right back almost immediately. Well, this creates depth of learning enemies' attack ranges and staying out of them and, trying to prevent yourself from getting hit by their, deadly moves. You can only move one character at a time, and that really bums me out because I think it destroyed a lot of the potential this game had for a really tactical battle system. What I mean by that is this. Too often, I will have one character that is very powerful compared to my other party members. I will act with him, and then I have my other party members come up. And the opponents usually attack every time one of your actions performs an attack. So why would I not just pass over my weaker character's turns and use my strong character every turn to do as much damage as possible? Because there's really limited downside to that. So the battles usually boil down to me using one character, running up to the enemy, smashing him with my hardest attack, and then just passing, going back to him, and doing it again. They try and remedy this by having certain techniques charge, and when you select them, your character sits and waits, and their turn is passed over until their charge attack is complete, at which point they execute it. The problem here is that they usually aren't that much more powerful than your instant action attacks. In addition to that, you can get interrupted while performing a charge attack. And keep in mind that if you want to move them into position to get in a good spot to use the charge attack to hit a lot of enemies, then you still gotta run up with them by themselves while everyone else just stands there. It's this awkward dynamic that I think could have been solved by just having, you selecting each character's action and then one turn passes, they all move. At the same time, I know that wouldn't really fit a game style like this because I think the battle system was purposely kept simple instead of complex because the focus here is on the story, not the battling. Unfortunately, the battling suffers for this, in my opinion. Now, this isn't to say that the combat system is bad or anything like that. It is still enjoyable. I did have fun with it. It's more just, I think of what it could have been, and it's just kind of that lost potential. One thing I really do enjoy about it is all the different attacks that your characters get. They get more attacks, usually when they level up. It's never just like, I punch them or I kick them. You'll get a ton of different attacks, all with varying damages, and some of them charge, some of them don't. They all have different attack ranges, leading to a little bit more complexity into the battle system, which I like. It's weird though. There's no MP system or system that limits you in which attacks you can do. So often when you find your most powerful attack, you'll probably stick with that one, but it still offers a decent amount of variety. Now, I know some people might hear this and say, well, you just didn't get the battle system, Minotaur. It's so much more deep than you think it is. And I don't know about that. Maybe it is deep, and I just didn't get it, but at the same time, if I didn't get it, and I was able to bumble my way through this game as fairly easily as I did, that doesn't really say much for the depth, because you can have a million different complex strategies and intricacies to your battle system, but if you're not requiring the player to use them or learn them, that's just as good as them not being there in the first place in my mind. Luckily, I didn't play this for the battle system, I played it for the story, and you know what? It's a dang good story from all the little chapters. It's not a really deep story. It's not gonna leave you thinking by the end and be like, wow, this changed my view on life. It's just a really fun romp and stomp through some different scenarios. Really, outside of the battle, my only complaints would truly be that this game suffers from that old game syndrome sometimes of needing to talk to this one specific character to advance the plot, but it is never really expressly said that you need to go talk to them. So at times, and this is especially bad in the mecha chapter, I feel, you will bumble around trying to find which character to talk to advance the plot, and it'll be some seemingly stupid action that you need to do or examine something stupid, and then it's oh yeah, no, you can continue now, you did that one thing. It can lead to some sidetracking a bit. The worst is in the mecha chapter when they're oh no, we must storm the evil facility to save them. I go to the one place in this city that looks most like an evil laboratory facility thing. I get stopped by the gates outside. They ask, "Do you have an appointment?" I'm thinking in my head, I say, "Yeah, I'm here to kick your ass." And I say that, they say, "You don't have an appointment. Get out of here." So I'm thinking in my head, this isn't the right place to be. I spend like the next 20 minutes like just frustrated going to every nook and cranny in this damn city, and I can't find it. And I finally go back to this shady looking building. I'm like, this has to be it. So I get stopped by the guards again, and this time I accidentally say, "No, I don't have an appointment." At which point the main character is like, "But I'm only here to kick your ass." And I was like, you mean I have to hit no to continue? It's little things like that that just bug the crap out of me. It doesn't happen too often, but when random encounters or encounters in general are strewn about as you're like trying to figure out what to do, it can become really frustrating. Now, there are definitely some standard RPG elements here in the battle system, such as equipable items, items in general, experience points. There's no money though, no shops. I have about one complaint with this. First of all, there's a lot of things to equip, giving you a lot of variety. Thankfully, a lot of them aren't necessarily always just, these give me better stats, I will equip that. Because some of them have special effects, like immunity to petrify, or immunity to sleep. The problem there is that you can only see those additional effects if you scroll out to the standard item list, which gets huge by the end of the game, because you have so many equipable items and healing items. You gotta double click on it, and only then can you see what that item actually provides for you. Then you go back to the equip screen, equip it if you want. But if you already have something equipped and you just want to see what it provides, then you gotta de-equip it, go back to the item menu. It's something that a lot of old games did, but it is frustrating nonetheless. One thing that I think we can all appreciate in this game is the ability to save anywhere. Very nice feature. For people listening that don't necessarily play a lot of older games like this, it may not be believable, but this was like a luxury back in the day to save anywhere. Most games only let you save at very specific save points, so sometimes you had to play for 45 minutes just to be able to save the game. Having that save anywhere feature with 4 save slots is very nice. So whenever you complete a scenario, you're able to save your game and then go on to the next one, and it's very important that you do so that you can get the final like complete ending. Don't just complete a scenario and then hit new game and do a different one. Make sure you continue on from that. Some of the things I think are really cool about this game is there is a lot of actions, and first of all, there's just a lot of funny moments in each chapter that are almost like little mini Easter eggs of encounters or things you can do if you search around really hard. There's also a lot of different endings and things that can happen in these chapters that offer a lot of replayability in them, ranging from just a simple ending of what happens, which will affect like the main ending of the game, to some things like even as important as which character you play as and becomes the protagonist. It offers this interesting dynamic of like seeing what you missed, and I'm lucky enough to have someone showing me the things that I missed and the funny things you can do as I played through this game in my Let's Play. It's just crazy. I feel like this is one of those games where if you go back and play it a second time, like every time you play this game, you're going to notice something new. You're going to notice a little extra joke, or maybe a side optional boss encounter. Something like that. Even at the end of the game, I was running from battles like all the time because I'm just trying to do everyone's like optional super dungeon for their ultimate weapon. In the comments, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you just keep running. You keep doing that." And finally, after I ran enough, a super optional boss came at me. It's little things like that this game it's very detailed. It's a very polished experience because of what it is in these little side chapters. And this feels like such a pet project for these developers, and it's got this indie game feel to it, even though it came from like a AAA dev from back in the day. As usual, I'm playing the music from this game throughout the review/thoughts, and I really, really enjoy the soundtrack. It is fantastic. Almost no tracks are throwaway here. I am so impressed that almost no music is reused from chapter to chapter. It is all unique. It is all music that fits each individual chapter. There are 8 different battle themes and a final boss theme and a regular boss theme. There is a unique battle theme for every chapter, and they're all really good. All of this music is fantastic. It blows my mind how well done that aspect is, because that had to be really hard. None of the tracks are especially long. They loop pretty quickly, but they're all excellent. Overall, should you guys play Live a Live? I would say absolutely give it a try. This game appeals to not only JRPG fans, but I think just about anyone can see the appeal in at least some of these chapters. Some of the chapters are incredibly throwaway, like the wrestling one. That's the only one that's really bad. I would not play that as a judge if you want to keep playing or not. But I think there's a chapter for just about everyone here. You may end up not liking every chapter, but I can guarantee you there's going to be at least one here that puts a smile on your face, and it is definitely a game worth playing. Despite everything negative I said about the battle system, it is still very adequate and still fun. It's more of a problem with me just thinking about what it could have been. So I think this is a game you should absolutely definitely try. The problem is it was never released outside of Japan, so you're gonna have to find the unofficial translated version to play. It's unfortunate that Squaresoft seems to have all but forgotten about this game, and I've never really heard many people talk about it at all. I think it's kind of a hidden gem, underrated game for this console. Probably a combination of it coming out in Japan, and due to how unique it was, it's a little bit more offbeat, so maybe people don't think about it as much. There we go. That's Live a Live, guys. Thank you so much. For those of you who watched the Let's Play, gave me tips and things to watch out for, thank you so much. That was a blast playing this game. I really enjoyed it. Till next time, thank you guys so much for watching. Later, everyone.